Hey guys, while we're learning about potatoes, I thought it'd be a really good idea for us to make some gnocchi. There's a few things we need to think about. Gnocchi is this amazing thing that could very easily turn to mush and be disgusting. What I like to do with gnocchi is I like to make it just till it's structurally sound, and then once it's structurally sound, I like to freeze it. I only cook my gnocchi from frozen. I have a few rules that I follow all the time, some with the making of it, of the actual dumplings, and some with my final cooking of them. And we'll go through them as I go. So first let's talk about the few things I do when I'm making it. Is quite often when you see a homemade gnocchi, you have a really nice potato product that's slightly warm, so not cold, slightly warm, like it's been mashed or it's been riced or it's been whatever it's been. And then you get a really high quality flour to add to it. And it's just a base gnocchi. There's lots of ways to make it. This is just a way I do it. One easy way to think about with gnocchi is you kind of don't really want too much more than 50% 50% flour and 50% potato. What I actually do is I do my darndest to get away from 50%. I want as far away from 50% of potato as possible. However, for reference, I almost always weigh out the exact same amount of flour as I do my potatoes. So this is 730 grams of potato, and this is 730 grams of flour. I'm really hoping to use maybe half of this, but I'm not gonna know until it comes together. So I'm gonna slowly let it come together, and then I'll know kind of how much I need. But just for reference, 730 grams, 730 grams, and that's the max. That is the most I will mix together, but I want to mix a lot less flour than the potato in this. So like I said about temperature, it can't be ice cold. It needs to be mixable, and we all know that ice cold potatoes are rock hard. That's not what I want at all. So I've got slightly warmed potato, just plain potato. I'm going to add some salt and pepper, and then I'll slowly start scooping in flour. There is a chance I'll probably put on gloves and mix by hand, and that's typical me because I'm impatient. So I've got some on the ready just in case. So I've got some sea salt in there. Again, white pepper would be great for this if I didn't hate it so much, but I really truly hate white pepper. I think tastes like farm, and I love farms, and farms are amazing, but I don't want to eat that in my pasta dish. So let me just grab a scoop. All right, so I'm gonna mix this really well. Then I'm going to slowly start adding flour until I'm happy with the texture of my dumpling. I need enough flour to keep it together. If I don't have enough flour, when I cook it in the water, it will fall apart and be gross. So my salt and pepper is mixed in, and I slowly start adding flour. Okay. So just put this aside. Oh yeah, now I can really see the texture. This is likely something you could do with the paddle in your mixer. I would just be concerned about over whipping the potatoes and getting a gluey texture. That's not good. So this is my second scoop. For food service reasons, I'd wear gloves for a lot of things, but for a lot of things I won't, because I want to be able to touch them and feel them and know what they're like. This isn't food service, I'm just making it in my home. The reason I'm choosing to wear gloves is because I don't want to stink like potatoes at the end of this. So it's protecting me. So that's scoop 2, and it's starting to come together and actually form what looks like a dough, which is perfect. I'll probably need another 2 scoops, I think. So I'll probably use less than half of what I have for the flour, which means I'm probably close to a 70% potato in this gnocchi, which is great. It's a good mix, it's a good amount. For scoop number 3. You know what? This third scoop might do it. So I'm definitely really close to a 70% potato, which is exactly what you need. Quite often when I'm with my students, I'll add more flour, but the reason behind that, is we'll usually be working with a harder potato, which feels moister. But we'll also quite often add things like a yam or a sweet potato, and those by nature, when cooked, have a lot more moisture to it than a potato. To be honest, these potatoes, I had left over from my duchesse. So these don't have the eggs in them, but they are potatoes that I dried out. So already these are drier than normal. But this dough actually looks pretty good. So that's 3 big scoops. I'll weigh this out later and see how much I actually put in there, because remember, for reference, I had equal and equal. And now I'm gonna take some, roll it, and I'll make myself some pillows. There are a few different ways to form your gnocchi. I actually really like the pillow texture. I think it's pretty. I think it fries really well, and I think it looks rustic. Rustic means a lot of things, but what it means to me and what I really like is I like it to look homemade. I like it when people see something like, wow, a human being wrapped that. That makes me happy. Or if I find like an herb stem in something that I'm eating, I'm really happy because that means a human being put an effort and made this food for me. So that's what I like about rustic. It isn't really that I don't like things fancy, it's that I like to see a human touch in what I'm making. So I'll get to rolling these really quick. So I've spread out some flour. I'm gonna take a small portion of this and I'm just gonna start forming it into a snake. So once I'm happy with the thickness of my little snake here, I'm gonna start cutting them into pillow forms. I like to use my little plastic scraper. 1, I'm not gonna hurt my countertop. 2, it's nice and gentle. And 3, I can also use it double time to scrape inside my bowl. So I'm gonna go a little over 1/2 inch for all of them. So this is what I mean by pillow. I think it looks like a really pretty pillow. I'm gonna continue on with this whole batch, and then I'll freeze it, and then tomorrow I'll put it together and I will turn it, I'll show you how to cook up a really great gnocchi dish. So my secrets for making the actual batter is try to have some dry flour, salt and pepper of course because you like it. Also, you can go up to 50% flour, so 50% potato, but you don't want to get that close. So I always measure the 2 out for reference, and then I try to steer clear from that full amount as much as possible. So because I had drier potatoes than normal, I'm fairly certain I'm about 70, maybe more like 75% potato. I would be surprised if I'm close to 80% potato, which is good. You don't want too much flour in it, but you want enough flour that when it cooks, it doesn't fall apart. So I'm positive that this is a nice dough that's not gonna fall apart on me, but you know what? I could be proven wrong tomorrow when we cook it. So I'll finish this up, I'll freeze it, and tomorrow I'll show you how to cook it. And I have very strict rules for cooking, and my very strict rules for cooking always give me a great product. So I'll show you those rules so you guys will get the great product as well. My gnocchis are completely frozen, so now I'm gonna cook them like pierogi. Give it 1 light stir at the beginning to make sure it's not stuck at the bottom. And then, once they float, I pull them up and I put them onto a prepared oiled plate and I let them rest for at least 20 minutes. I pull off the ones that are consistently floating. It's important to let them rest and let them be well oiled. Once the gnocchi has rested, I like to saute it in brown butter. So for my restaurants, I prefer to have blanching gnocchi as part of my prep list. And I'll have several portions of gnocchi blanched and sitting at room temperature or slightly chilled, and those will be ready for pan frying whenever. If I get them incredibly cold, obviously they expire after an hour or 2. We can't keep them all day at room temp, but we can keep them for a little bit at room temp. So I would just kind of continually blanch a few batches at a time and hold them. once they're blanched and ready is when they're able to be seared. So I personally prefer to serve a gnocchi that's been pan fried. So I like to get a little bit of color on my butter. I don't want to get super brown. It's going to continually brown as I sear it up. But I get my rested and oiled gnocchi. As soon as I put it on the pan, I make sure it can move. And if I'm positive it can move, I kind of leave it alone. The pan's gonna do what the pan is gonna do, and I don't really need to be doing too much to it. And the more I do to it, actually, is more detrimental. It breaks up the gnocchi the more I play with it. It stops it from caramelizing if I move it from its spot. So I just let it get nice and hot on the butter as is. I had it on high to heat up my butter to get it slightly brown. I'm gonna turn it now to a medium. And then move them all. I'll just check one. Oh, I'm getting a lovely color, which means I can stir them all. Again, when they're on their new side, I don't want to mess with them too much. Just gonna make sure that I've got a color facing up and that I've got a plain side facing down, and I'm gonna keep browning them. I'm gonna give this a swirl so I can kind of get them in the right spot. I'll give them a few seconds to get up to color right now. The brown butter that I sauteed my gnocchi in has become my sauce. It has this wonderful nutty flavor and beautiful salt that goes really, really well with a pan-fried gnocchi. There is potato gnocchi seared in brown butter and garnished with chives. Thank you for watching.